know if you have any views on is enough being done to help everyone involved in the process, but also how do government employees humanise what is happening to people's lives would be a good thing to ask you.
So I suppose in terms of is enough being done, the straight answer to that one is we are trying our best to get things done as quickly as possible. However, you're absolutely right. It's not that not enough is being done. It's more that we are doing what we're doing. And I really like Chris's analogy there about war and how we're not going to tell anybody about the war until we've won it. And he's absolutely right there. And it's really pivotal. Actually, what we need to do more of is, lots of morale boosters, I suppose. Yes. Being able to, as Chris is saying, communicate out, because we have been doing an awful lot of good work. I think we've just we've been so preoccupied with not trying to build expectations, because we know what we want as a final outcome. That's been clearly articulated in the mortgage lending and cladding, working groups report and its recommendations. So we do know where we're trying to get to. I think the real challenge is there's a lot of different moving parts, some of which are ours to own. So, for example, the communication angle, and I take your point, David and Chris, that we do need to spend more time communicating. However, we've tried to offset that by spending more time delivering. So we're trying to push forward with all of these 26 buildings in the pilot and the other 80 buildings. But you're absolutely right, Chris. Maybe we need to just take stock and, communicate more to the wider public. So 100% take that one on board. And in terms of the human angle, as you say, Brian, I think that can't be stressed enough. Our primary factor is about keeping people safe in their homes, and from that perspective, again, we're not trying to alarm people, because we do firmly believe that the building standards in Scotland, which have been much more strict than those across the UK since approximately 2005, we do anticipate that the scale of the problem isn't as large as, say, the scale in England. However, that doesn't make life any easier for people living in these homes. So our real approach is get this single building assessment pilot completed, make sure that industry accept the outcomes, coming back to something that I think David mentioned, which was around developers doing their own assessments or anyone doing their own assessments. It's all about industry respecting the consistency of the standards that we are trying to embed. And with those consistent standards, it means that actually there'll be much more acknowledgement from industry that industry's got it right. So from that perspective, in theory, in the future, it shouldn't really matter who commissions an assessment on the building. It should be done to the consistent standard.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, again, because it's these are buildings owned by the homeowners can hold whoever does that assessment to account if the assessment isn't correct. So the power really does rest with the homeowners, and our role here in government is to support that work and help try and navigate through some of those barriers. And that's really what we're working through at the moment. But I take your point, Chris. Absolutely, we do need to work with you and with David to improve that support and improve that communication out to factors as well as homeowners.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gents, that's been really useful. I think one good thing that was, we've done this on a couple of podcasts. I think we should come back in a year's time and see where we are and see where we've moved to and how much progress has been made. And I think that'd be really, really useful in a way to timestamp it as well on this podcast. David, I'm sure you'd come back on, but do you have anything to add just before we wrap up?
No. The only thing I noted down, which is related but unrelated, and probably again comes back to what you're saying, Brian, is that I've been banging another drum at Property Managers Association Scotland about how we educate the homeowners to Chris touched on it. One of the biggest challenges in our industry is predominantly downsizers, first-time buyers, getting their first introduction to factoring, not having a purchasing or solicitor clearly explain what their responsibilities are as duty holders.
Yeah.
But it does have an effect on this as well, because if we can get that message out there, however we do it, via podcasts, via even adverts, we've been talking about doing things like that to try and make sure that Scotland is educated, that it's not leasehold, there is no landlord here, that is a collective bunch of landlords and duty holders that are responsible for ensuring that their development is properly maintained and managed. And if we can look and assess legislation, because there's massive learning curves through this whole process. It's such a massive thing that has highlighted that challenge. So for us, I think everybody can do more in communicating exactly what factoring is all about and where the responsibilities lie with homeowners.
Yeah, sure.
I've said that to you 101 times before, Brian. So
yeah, we even talk about it on some podcasts. We've stopped doing it though because we keep referencing you. Chris, anything to add before we finish up?
No, I really just back up David. I think our own factor, I had a conversation with the other day, and we're singing from the same song sheet. We send regular updates to all our owners, some of which are well received and some of which clearly just go straight in the bin or don't even get opened. And her comment was that we ought to have, when we communicate with owners, rather like when the children have their end of term reports, that they have to get a parent to sign it to say that they've read it. And quite clearly, I would say this is a guesstimate in our own owners, and they're probably more responsive than many across Scotland. I would suggest that between 25 and 30% of them simply don't read the emails or letters sent to them.
Yeah,
it's actually quite high. It's actually quite high compared to our analysis that goes out the door for our messaging. So yeah, you're right, Chris. That is particularly high and that gives you a clear indication of where that apathy exists.
Yeah. Thanks. And Hardip, anything to end for you?
No, only other than we should, as Chris and David has said, we will definitely work collaboratively with all of our stakeholders in terms of improving that communication, because there's an awful lot going on in this space, and we are trying our best to move things forward quickly. We've got a lot of barriers, but we will get there in the end.